Take some mushrooms and lock in to the dark crystal.
Hey, welcome to the Two Older Pure Gold Movie Podcast, where Gen X and the younger generation revisit movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s to see if they still hold up. In today's episode, we're discussing the 1982 family fantasy movie, The Dark Crystal. I'm your host, Olen Leeden, representing Gen X. Joining me today is my Gen X co-host and the Skeksis of our group, Mathew Stockton.
Nice.
Representing the millennials this week, we have comedian Will Corry. Hello, Will.
Hey, what's up?
Jesus.
Is that too loud?
Yeah, it's like Olen always says, like, for people who are like in front of the microphone for a living, you don't know how to use it.
All right, sorry, I won't yell.
That's good. Also representing the millennials, we have huge puppet fan Anthony.
Hey, guys.
And also joining us today, we're very lucky to have a special guest, Brad Elliott, who has had one of those careers that movie fans dream about. Brad, let me know if I get any of this wrong, but here's your intro.
Oh, boy.
Brad Elliott spent decades behind the scenes as a property master, helping create everything from The Muppets to modern movie blockbusters. His resume includes The Muppets, The Adventures of Elmo in Grouchland, Batman vs. Superman, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Avatar: The Way of the Water. Along the way, he worked with the Jim Henson Company in the Muppet Workshop and even stepped in as an additional Muppet performer himself. I got all that right?
Yeah, once in a while, I even got to put a penguin on my hand or something. It was really
you're
fun.
the first guest we've had that can say that.
Legally say that. Yeah.
And to all the puppet fans out there, my first movie as a property master was a Trey Parker, Matt Stone puppet movie called Team America World Police.
Oh.
And that was one of my absolute favorite jobs because of how incredibly stupid it was and how much, if I'd known what I was getting into, I would have been terrified. But I was at that age where, you can kind of just, oh yeah, whatever, I can do that. Let's figure it out.
I love that movie so much.
It holds up.
It's so funny.
Well, Brad, we're excited to talk to you a little bit about your career, but first I'm just going to introduce the film. So today we're talking about The Dark Crystal. It's a Jim Henson movie. It was written and directed by Jim. I assume all you young people know Jim Henson, but for anyone that doesn't, Jim Henson was the visionary puppeteer, filmmaker, and storyteller whose groundbreaking imagination gave the world The Muppets and forever changed family entertainment. After the success of the Muppet movie, Jim Henson wanted to prove puppets could do more than comedy. Teaming up with Frank Oz and fantasy artist Brad Frode, he spent nearly 5 years creating an entire fantasy world with no human characters. So the tagline from this movie poster is "Another world, another time, in the age of wonder." IMDb describes the film as "On another planet in a distant past, the last of the Gelfing race embarks on a quest to find the missing shard of a magical crystal and to restore order to his world." Okay, so I would love to hear your quick reaction to this movie from everybody, and then we can get into it.
I didn't love this movie. It's kind of like a bad mushroom trip, to be honest. It was like, I don't know. It felt like a middle school's like short story that kind of got turned into a script. Like even just some of the names, like everyone had like a weird different name, and then the main character's name was Jen. I was like, what are we doing here? I don't know. And then the story, it was just, I don't know. I wasn't super into it. Couldn't really get into the world and stuff. But the puppeting was cool. I like an all puppet movie. I think something different like that's cool to pull off. But just didn't love the plot very much.
Matthew,
didn't really buy it.
What did you think? Is it as good as you remembered?
It's, yeah, actually. And I'll tell you why. I think I like the story because it's not really about good defeating evil. It's about what happens when the world is divided against itself. And I think we live in a world right now where that's particularly true. And, it's a much more sophisticated storyline than most kids' movies that you watch, right? It's about wholeness. It's about two parts of something needing to be together, and about integration for something to work. And and it shows that instinct without reflection becomes predatory, and reflection without involvement becomes passive, right? And that's the two sides of this story. And I think it's about healing the world, and I just think it has really big themes that I find fascinating, and I get more out of it now as an adult watching it than I did as a kid. And also the world is complete. Like, that world is so complete. Just the visual world is so complete. Even the mistakes, or what would be considered a mistake, actually work. There's always, I think there's always some difficulty with emotions with puppets, maybe, and I think, and I'll get into that. But no, I still love this film. Yeah, and I recently watched the prequel TV show, which unfortunately was canceled, which made
So,
me sad.
Brad, you're in this industry. Did you rewatch the movie?
I did, as a matter of fact.
What's your take on it?
Everybody brings up some good points. Like, I have a nostalgic love for this from seeing it as a kid because of just the fantasy of it, and the build of the world was really transporting to me, and it stays that way. And I will say that the movie feels a little pacey at this point. It maybe is a little slow when it could be moving faster, but maybe that's more of just what modern filmmaking seems to be. It's less of a ride and more of a contemplative journey, and it is really that journey, and it is to repair this crystal, which will bring balance. And I think that's just such a universal story. When I watch it now, however, I can't see the movie anymore. I see through it to the craft that put it together. And that's a big problem that I have in general. Like, my wife loves it when I point out continuity errors and, they're eating a banana. Watch the length of it, because it's one of the hardest things to keep track of, right? So I see through it.
That's a quote.
And I see...
Watch the length of it.
Watch the size of the banana, because, oh man, they made a choice. Not in this Dark Crystal, obviously, but it was so well made without leaning into CG or without. It was groundbreaking for its puppetry and the design of it. I mean, when you get into Agra's world and you see that, what's the name of those things where you've got all the planets spinning around? I'm blanking, but
Like the solar system thing?
Oh, that
yeah,
was cool.
that huge model
cool.
that's built practically, and then they destroy it, and it's like, oh my God, like, I want that in my house. I don't have a big enough house, but just the way her eyeball worked, the craft of that film is just art, every frame. And the puppetry of it is also amazing, because, like, there's one scene where we have our main little Gelfling guy, and he runs he's going to come forward in the frame by running through the background and then running through the midground and then running into the foreground again. And, what I saw was a suit performer in the deep background running across the background, and then a medium-sized puppet coming across the midground, and then you've got, the smaller puppet coming in front of frame. And just figuring that out, the mental gymnastics that it takes to figure out how to achieve that shot in camera is staggering. The characters that are on stilts, those big weird spidery things that are running around, their legs aren't completely touching the ground, and they're not absolutely motivating them, but I still think as puppets and as creatures, they're scary and they work. Yeah. So it's for the technology of the time. You mentioned the prequel TV show stories where they did so much CG integration. I love the craft of this movie, and I guess I maybe can't even pay attention to the story anymore, because every frame is just multiple works of art being displayed in front of me. And that's, I think, one of the things that I still love about Dark Crystal. We'll talk about Labyrinth another time.
Labyrinth is a fun movie too.
But that's funny. That's an issue with like, I'm in marketing. I've been in advertising all my life, and I can't watch a commercial without analyzing it and, like, trying to figure out what the consumer insight and what they're trying to change. It's the same thing. It's when you're in the business, you can't just see it for what it is anymore, can you?
No.
the fun thing about this pod is we've had a couple of guests like yourself. We've had an editor and a stunt double and a stunt coordinator on, and we're learning more about what goes into movies and looking at the craft behind it, and it's kind of cool. And definitely the craft was there. My notes on this, my overall summary, that's a whole lot of puppets. That was my summary. And I also said, feels like Lord of the Rings meets Dune meets The Muppet Show. That was my analysis. You know, I'll be honest, I found it a little slow. I have no idea. I'm happy to have Anthony back on the pod here because I wanted to say, Anthony, what did you think of this? And do you think this is actually a kid's movie or a family movie?
I was watching it right when we put my daughter to bed, so she obviously came out a few times to take a look, and apparently she told Mom that she was very scared of the show. So
was
it's
I.
not for little kids, I don't think. For an hour and a half movie, it did feel very drawn out and slow. And I don't know if it was just the writing or me personally, but I could not give less of a shit about the story. I was just totally enthralled with the puppetry and just watching it all and how it all kind of blended together. And I was just awestruck and just kind of, that was without weed. I didn't smoke anything last night. I wanted to go into this completely sober and just enjoy the ride. And it was an awesome
Cool.
So
experience.
I have a question for our non-Gen Xers. With Jen and Kira specifically, right, our Gelflings, did you find that they kind of, their faces fell into this uncanny valley of like a little too real but not real enough? Like, where do you think, because that's one of the questions I've always had. As a kid, no question, no problem, they were alive. But as an adult, when I watch it again, I'm like, the faces don't really move. Maybe like a face could.
Yeah, it was a little bit creepy.
Yeah, a little bland. I don't know. I felt like what you're saying, like there wasn't a lot going on. Maybe the eyes moved a little bit, but there wasn't a ton of emotion.
I'll tell you, Brad, I flagged that as one of the things that kind of took me out of the movies. I thought all the creatures were great, but then those two characters, their faces were so plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had that as part of one of my worst parts as well. Is I think the Gelflings, oddly, are sort of less interesting than almost everything else on the screen. You know, like Kira has more warmth and agency than Jen does, but both of them are designed to be sympathetic rather than complicated. But if you put them beside the Skeksis or the Podlings, they can seem oddly bland. And I think that's what I was talking about with sometimes there's an unavoidable limitation of puppetry, which you can talk to us about. You know, the creatures are astonishing to look at, but the faces cannot always sort of carry subtle emotion. And I think with those two, you just didn't get that.
But a mouth that doesn't move also I find jarring. Like if you just give me a puppet that it doesn't even have to have an articulate mouth, just it moves a little.
Yeah.
A mouth that doesn't move is always a little bit creepy.
I love how aspirational this film is. You know, this was at a time, and I think I'm getting this right, that Jim Henson and the Muppet Show itself was like, that Muppet Show was the highest rated television show at the time for CBS, right? It was a monster hit. Everybody tuned in on whatever night it was on, got the family together with their TV dinners, and they watched the Muppet Show.
And they got the biggest stars.
Yeah. And week after week, they were rewarded with huge guest stars and really funny, innovative content. And Jim Henson, and I don't know if you've seen the latest documentary that Ron Howard did. If you haven't, I really recommend it. He was always working on the next four things. He was always striving to do the next and make it bigger and make it better. And so what I love about The Dark Crystal now is that, yes, it's absolutely pacey. And I completely agree. I mean, I brought it up, the sort of uncanny valley of the Gelflings, but they reached, and it's so aspirational to try to do what this was and not care about finding the money or how much it's going to cost. It's just like, and also not bothered that he tore down the biggest hit TV show that had been on in a very long time to do this, because it was just time to do something crazy and big. And that's one of the things I forgive it all of its faults, you know. Also, as far as the pace of this movie goes, I have to say, I am defending this movie forever now. So I guess we're fighting. The pace of this movie is no different than Blade Runner, you know. And if you watch that now, it's slow.
That's fair.
And it's a
fair.
product of its time. Like Blade Runner is what, 1984,
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
around the same time.
So
yeah.
this is filmmaking at the time, and they took time to breathe in movies that maybe we don't now, because it just, you can pack one more scene in if you cut this down a little bit. And I mean, I'm on the inside of Avatar: Way of the Water, or I'm sorry, Fire and Ash. I was lucky enough to do both of those sequels, and I came out of Fire and Ash thinking, like, is that a movie or is that a ride? I mean, I think I liked it in either sense, but like, holy crap, that's a tight 2 hours and 77 minutes when you think about just how much time you're in the theater, but it's always moving, and you don't feel slow, or at least I didn't. With Dark Crystal, it's definitely has that pace to it, but that may also just be part of the language of filmmaking back then, is you really let your worlds breathe, and you let your characters have moments. You show the shoe leather, you just let them walk. You know, like that shot I was talking about, coming from the background to the midground to the foreground, then the scene starts. Like, nowadays, you wouldn't do that, because the story isn't about getting to your mark. The story is, what do you say when you're there? And we just have a different film grammar now, 40 some years later, than we did back then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. And it was definitely beautiful set pieces.
Yep.
And I agree. It's kind of what movies did in the time, is they took their time telling a story. So for sure.
And where the Gelflings fail a little bit in being real, like Agra, I mean, she's amazing, and every bit as real as Yoda was for me when I was a kid, right? And she's just brilliant as a character. Like, you don't think at all of her as a puppet ever. Whereas maybe once in a while with the Gelflings, they pull you out. And then the little podlings, they're so cute, especially when you drain all their life essence and they shrivel up like a little raisin. But great effects there as well. So much in camera. So I guess I kind of forgive it some of its failings in perfect puppetry and perfect character realization. Like, you know, was that sword, as it was chopping at that stone, actually chipping anything off of it? No, not really, you know. But did I mind when I was a kid? Heck no.
I agree to a degree too, because like personally I didn't really care about the Gelfling. I was so interested in all the other characters. I think they did such a good job with them, with the visuals and even some of the story, that I just, even if the evil vulture demons, like I just wanted to see more. They became like a background to me. The Gelfling.
I think what you're experiencing, Anthony, is you know, I think some of these like small weaknesses are really inverse to the entire film's strengths, and I think it was, you know, they did such a good job. They were so committed to building this world that for some people, character and narrative can be secondary, and they can still love it, right? Like you are, yeah, because it's so cool. Yeah.
Very rare that I get lost in a world in a movie, and this was one of those.
I will
cool
say
times.
too, like, just to touch on what you're saying, I feel like practical effects needs to make like a comeback.
Totally.
Like CG has just gone so in the wrong direction. Like, obviously you can do really cool things with CG, but like it's just always better when you do like a practical thing. And I know that's probably more, maybe you can touch on this, like more money or more set design and more technicality to it, but it just looks cooler. It's better for world building and stuff like that, and I like that part of the film for sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think the prequel movies that came out, which and they had beautiful design, and they had, you know, all the most talented people. A lot of them were my friends, so I'm going to be very careful here. But I was disappointed when the CG integration came into the puppetry, because it's so impressive to see it in camera, and I understand I have a weird lens and a filter on all this stuff because I pull it apart as I watch it, and I wish I couldn't. I wish I didn't, but that's just how it works for me now. And I wasn't as impressed pulling that stuff apart. Some moments were brilliant, right? But when they leaned into CG too much, I was like, okay. It would have been cool to see this solved in a different way for me.
I still like the show though, and you know, the prequel of showing the the Holocaust of the Gelflings, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word.
It's a good title.
I really liked watching that. I like that prequel, and I was really disappointed that they just didn't continue on. I don't know why they canceled it. I was into it.
I didn't know the Gelflings were Jewish. I didn't pick up on that. That was a detail that eluded me.
I think Gelfling Holocaust is actually like isn't it like a Finnish metal band or something?
It sounds like a Finnish metal band, doesn't it? Absolutely.
I question for you, Brad.
Yeah.
Like, when you watch these movies, is it different to experience it? I mean, obviously a little bit, but when you're watching it post-production or in the scene, is it totally different, or is it pretty close to it?
Oh, like if
for
you're on
awe-inspiring?
if you're on stage watching this stuff?
Yeah, like if you're on the show.
Well, usually there's a level of hoping that your props don't break when I'm on stage watching stuff like this. So that you're very much, I mean, it is a job. It's you're hardly a spectator, but there are many moments where you're just watching the puppeteers create something just really beautiful. And maybe I have a lot more experience with the Muppets. My first job in town was in 1995. Unless I was actually passing through town, but I heard there was going to be a new Muppet show, and I'm like, oh, I'll just go get a job on that. And that worked out. So I've been with the Muppets on and off for 30 years-ish. And
Wow.
I find that when you can bring an inanimate puppet to life and give it a soul and give it character and have it, I've seen Kermit on the log playing the banjo and doing Rainbow Connection more than once. And I think maybe 3 times at this point. And whenever that's happened, like the whole crew from the accounting department to, the caterers, they stay late, they come and they watch. And I don't watch the frog on the log as much as I like to watch the people watching that happen. Because, for me, I'm still in the technical and hoping that the banjo doesn't break. And, all the rest of that stuff is always in my mind. But watching people crying as they're having this experience, like that's one of the real beautiful things about puppetry for me that I didn't really think about going into it. But the fact that you can emotionally connect in such a major way to a frog made out of fleece and ping pong balls. They're not actually ping pong balls. They were at one point, but that's the beauty of what puppetry does. Is I think it's a little disarming, and it takes your fences and defenses down a little bit, because it's like, oh, it's really cute, and then the soul comes out, and it can be really powerful because it's disarmed you a little bit from your shields to that kind of experience. And I think the Dark Crystal, where it didn't hit every time, it still gets there in a lot of ways. Like those old hunched over dudes, the ascetic, what are they called? I can't remember the name of the characters, but they're magical, and they have such a great culture, and they're drawing all their sand drawings, and they've got art, and they're quiet and contemplative. Like, I miss that they're gone at the end of the movie, because they have to fuse with the Skeksis, who are these murdered vultures, who are completely opposite. But we have to have the balance. You have to have that combination, because that's what the movie's about. It's taking, the left and the right and actually creating something new. And I think I was actually really surprised, and we brought this up earlier, at how much those themes are very relevant in today's world, how you just have such polarization, and it's so entrenched. And it's interesting that 40 years later, these are themes that are still completely resonating with me.
Yeah. A lot of these
Well said.
podcasts we do after we're done the discussion, I feel like watching the movie again, and often change my mind about the movie during the conversations. Just a quick side question here. Did you ever get to meet Jim Henson?
No, I'm really sad. He died, I think, 2 or 3 years before I came to the company. So they had just finished, what had they just done? I think they'd finished Muppet Christmas Carol, because that was Brian Henson's first movie. I came in like 4 years after he had passed away, so the company was still honestly reeling a little bit. Everybody had their jobs and they kept doing them, and they were trying to figure out how to put the soul back into it, and they were really afraid of Kermit at this point. I think personally. One of the greatest compliments, my now good friend Dave Goles, who's a puppeteer, one of the originals, he does Gonzo and Bunsen Honeydew and a bunch of other characters. He told me once that he was like, "Oh, Brad, Jim he just would have loved you." And that was one of the best compliments I've ever had in my life, is hearing that from Dave. So no, I didn't meet him, but I feel like I would have fit in just right with his vibe,
So what's a puppet you worked on that?
like a puppet that I performed.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, I think I did some, as far as Muppets go, it's like tiny little things in the background. Like I think on Muppets Tonight, I was a penguin in the background of, maybe it was the opening sequence. I can't remember. I did some marionette work for them because the Muppet Workshop is one where the prop people do a little bit more than just the props. We also do puppet stunts, like if we're going to shoot Gonzo out of a cannon, that usually falls to us. Or in the Jason Segel Muppets, I had to do this. We had like a couple of funky rigs where Jack Black was going to come out of a trailer and in like a motion capture suit that was really cartoonish, and Miss Piggy was going to swing in on a line and like pin him to the door with her high heels on either side of his head. And so like those are rigs. I don't really know if I'm performing at that point, but those are rigs that I build. And like they held camera for 45 minutes for me to rig that, because I had to run all kinds of lines and wires and pulleys all over the place to make sure that I didn't stab Jack Black in the face with Miss Piggy's high heel shoe, which would have been an awkward moment.
That would have been
As far as like straight puppeteering, the stuff I actually get residuals for, I am very proud to have puppeteered. I did the 3rd season of Arrested Development. You guys know that show at all?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so at the end of the 3rd season, Buster ends up in the water after falling off the Queen Mary, and he's in the water, and his nemesis, the loose seal with the yellow bow tie, pops up and confronts him. And so that was me in that puppet in scuba gear underwater with that thing on my hand. I had no idea where my eyeline was, but that's a moment. For example, the most recent stuff I've done was a lot of electromechanical puppeteering, which is a fancy way of saying driving droids in the Kenobi miniseries, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Driving droids in crowds, especially around stormtroopers, is really tricky because they really can't see anything out of those helmets. And all the background and all the extras that we have, they just assume that the droids are real and that there's nobody actually driving them. So you've got to be up on high ladders so you can actually see down to the droid and always know where it is, because those R2 units have really sharp corners and they love to fall over, so you don't want to hit anybody. One of maybe my proudest moments on that show was the mouse droid. Do you guys remember the mouse droid in Star Wars: A New Hope? They're bringing Chewbacca to the detention center, right? He's got the things. And there's that little remote control car droid that runs
little
up.
square guy.
Yeah, and he yells at it, and it like does a Y turn and runs away. I got to drive one of those in a battle scene, which was super fun, and even suggested to the director that our main character shoots it, and then it survives the blast and turns around and screams off in the other direction. And those are really fun moments for me. I really like driving droids. That's one of my favorites.
You have such a great job. You must just be so happy with your career.
Sometimes, there's a lot of glamour in the film and TV business, and all these stories sound really great, but they also come at a cost. Like, anybody who's thinking about getting into this should know that, like, this all sounds amazing when you're in your 20s, but when you get, when you have kids and this is your 14th hour on set, and you know that you haven't seen your youngest in like 3 days, even though you're living in the same house, it's there's a cost to that, and the travel that I used to go all over the world for movies, especially when I was doing more assisting work for Doug Harlocker, or that's where Batman versus Superman came up.
Oh, yeah.
And those are great movies. Everybody's like, "Oh, you got to work on Batman versus Superman," and they don't realize, like, yeah, you remember all those night scenes? That's us at night for months, being ghosts in our own worlds, because you go to work about an hour before the sun's going to go down, and you shoot, because that's what Batman is. He's not out there at noon.
Rarely.
And it's very hard to simulate night. So, and even doing those overnights is not good for your brain. Like, there's a lot of this industry where you start a Monday morning 6 a.m. call, and if you're doing long days, because our union, thank goodness, protects our ability to sleep, which means we have to have at least 10 hours between when we leave work and when we come back. And yeah, that's a huge amount of life that you get to live in those 10 hours. And that includes your commute, by the way. So by the end of the week, we can be doing what we call Friday days all the time, which is the Friday call is 11 o'clock or noon, just because we've had to protect those 10 hours. And for the actors, it's 12. That you're eating into your Saturday, and then all of a sudden you've become nocturnal over the week, and you have to rip that schedule back to a 6 a.m. call on Monday. And overnights, losing sleep is as bad for your brain as like a bad hangover. It's literally not good for your body. So there is a real cost to these long hours and to these very glamorous and fun to tell stories about movies and TV shows that I've been on. It's not for everybody. And I guess if I look back at my career and was talking to that 25-year-old who was passing through Los Angeles and wanted to get a job on the Muppet Show, I'd say, yeah, no, it'll be worth it for you. But it isn't for everybody. Not everybody. I've had way more than my fair share of amazing projects to work on, and
what
a
was
lot
your
of it's
favorite
because favorite thing I've ever done
Yeah.
gosh, that's a tough one, but I think it's going to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Like, I was in the theater, I think I was 6 when the Star Destroyer comes overhead in Star Wars: A New Hope, and I was just a changed person. And I was up for The Mandalorian, which is obviously a huge Star Wars franchise.
Grogu.
Yeah, exactly. But I was busy on the Avatar sequels at the time, and I couldn't leave to go do it. And I literally was crying when I had to turn that job down. But when the Kenobi series came along, I realized, like, oh yeah, this is the right one for me, because I got to give Darth Vader his lightsaber. I got to give Ewan McGregor the only lightsaber he's ever used that actually lit up.
That's so cool.
He was like a kid in the candy store with that kind of thing. And just touching those characters and being able to draw some threads in that franchise was a real gift for me. So definitely favorite job, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I was up for a much more successful movie podcast, but I already accepted this one, and I was crying,
just tears flowing.
Yeah, but happy to be here. Otherwise,
Hey, Olen, all this reminds me. I met Cheryl, I think her name was Henson, in a gay bar called Three Monkeys in Moscow in the early 90s.
Wow. Was Deborah Harry there?
No, but I embarrassed myself because I was like off my tits on ecstasy and sat down. I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" I hadn't met her before, and they said we're talking about Sesame Street, and my boss was with her. He was a gay guy, and I started going on and on and on about how Ernie and Bert were gay, and then my boss goes, "Mathew, I'd like to introduce you to Cheryl Henson," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She goes, "You know what? I think they were too." She said something like that. Yeah, it was early.
Wow, the big reveal of the podcast.
Yeah, the early collapse after the Soviet Union. I was there. I opened an ad agency, and she was talking to us. She was bringing like Sesame Street into Russia, and like sort of starting to ramp that up. That's why she was there. So that was kind of a cool little meet.
I don't understand this debate. I don't understand why people need these puppets to define their sexuality, especially given the fact that they don't have legs or anything below the waist to even consider. I don't know.
The point is moot, isn't it?
It's like, I mean, yeah, there's some occasions where you build legs and you stick them on there, but for the most part, there's no...
Mostly hand stuff.
It's
a lot of fisting.
Who is your favorite Muppet? My favorite Muppet ever since I was a kid was, what was his name? Rolf, the one that plays the piano.
Rolf. Yeah.
I loved Rolf so much.
That's Jim's first like real character, and like everybody thinks that, Kermit's the alter ego, but I actually, and they're probably right, but I also think that Rolf is there because Rolf is like the soul. He's the wise one at the piano, and he's so thoughtful, and I've always loved Rolf.
I've always
I'm a
found
fan.
comfort in Rolf, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm a Waldorf and Statler guy because
You've
I
turned into
resonate.
Waldorf.
I
and
resonate
Statler.
with them. Yeah, for sure.
Can you tell them apart? Do you know which one is Waldorf and which one is Statler? This is the
Cannot.
$10 question,
I
right?
cannot.
All right, here's you'll never get it wrong again.
Is Statler the one with the bigger nose?
They're a symbiote. Well, Waldorf has a wider head. Just know that. Like Waldorf is wider, and Statler's the other one.
No. Okay. Now I know.
My favorite is always Gonzo, and I have to say that not just because of my relationship with Dave Goles, but I think what Gonzo does for the world and this is feedback that I've heard from Dave, that people have come up to him and said, you know what? I love Gonzo because he gives me permission to be me without having to define myself as anything, because Gonzo, up until the movie Muppets from Space, was always a whatever. I think somebody called him a cross between a mosquito and a chicken, but it didn't matter. And I love that he has given people in this world permission to just be who they are and not try to figure it out past that. And so that's why Gonzo is going to always be my favorite, because he's just weird and unapologetically weird. And I think there's something really special about that.
Awesome.
Good
Well,
stuff.
I'm going to transition us back to the format, get us through some of these categories. Before I get to best parts, I just had one question on my list I need to ask. Will, was Kira hot? It did something for you. I can tell.
Maybe after like 6 puppet beers. I don't know.
6 puppet beers.
I don't know. Were they children? I was very confused by their age. I wasn't sure.
Well, they talked about their childhood, so maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not then. No, I'm gonna say no. Kira wasn't. Jen was. Jen was a smoking hot puppet, but
I think Kira's the same size as Jess.
that's true. That's true. They do have similar body types.
And then last question before I transition is, Brad, I'm just curious, what happens on a production like this to all the costumes, all the puppets when you're done? Do they just go in a big warehouse? Because there's so many cool things there, and I kept thinking, you would want any of them for your collection, right?
Oh my goodness, yeah. And I would start with Agra's Ori, to actually get a screen used shard would be huge. I'm a bit of a prop collector, surprise, and all of that stuff is golden. And it depends on for this time period, right? What likely happened at the end of this was the puppets were all stuffed in boxes and just started to rot, because foam latex is not an archival material. It's, if you've ever opened up your couch cushions and you see that sort of yellow and they're kind of crumbly if it's an old couch, like that's just how foam behaves as it oxidizes. It just crumbles. So most of this stuff will have been lost to time at this point. But also the mindset back then, especially in the 80s, was just we made the movie. We don't need it anymore. Like there's no reason to keep it because we took the picture of it. So yeah, you guys want that thing? Go ahead. Whatever, take it. Or
Nice.
some of it gets binned. That was back then. Now things are a little more archival, and like I did the last big movies I worked on, Netflix wanted X number of stuff, and when we knew we weren't going to be doing any more of these films, they wanted the storage space more than they wanted the props. So we did a dead wrap, and a lot of the stuff just gets shredded, and it's too bad because it's all works of art, and they have like bonded companies that have proof of destroying these things because the secondary market out there is so huge. So I don't know if you know the story of Princess Leia's dress. There was one dress that was saved because somebody pulled it out of a trash can in London and took it home and used it at a costume party for something. And then there was wine spilled on it and it got just shoved in a box without being cleaned and left in an attic for 40 years. And then that was found, and that dress came back out, and was professionally cleaned and was restored. The little moth holes and tears in it were all fixed, and it goes for to auction. I don't know what prop store got for it, but it's a lot of money, because there are people that have these emotional attachments to these films and these TV shows, and they want a piece because it's special.
There's a lot of nerds with money these days, and that's why props and comic books and all that stuff are so popular.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad because it's all this brilliant art. In the case of the puppets, unless you go to great lengths to just remove all the oxygen from around them, like, literally encase them in a nitrogen environment or something like that, they're just never going to last. But the props could have lasted, but where are you going to keep them? Like August Corry.
Obviously, Brad, behind you on your wall.
Well, there's some, I've got a few. There's some in front of me too.
That's so
this
cool.
room is
where
a
do you
hot
live,
mess.
Brad? Where are you sitting?
I am in North Hills of Los Angeles, so I'm in
Okay.
Northridge, which is if you want to try to buy a house in Los Angeles, good luck. You're gonna have to go to the North Hills.
Dude, I live in Vancouver. It's the same.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love Vancouver.
Yeah, it's a good town.
Nice.
But by the way, on the costumes, a piece of trivia for you, Brad. 9 tons
Yeah.
of rubber were used on the film.
9 tons. Yeah. I
9
believe it.
tons of rubber.
Wow.
Yeah.
Eight of them for puppets.
Yeah, no, it's and you're talking about the puppet that is that performer, but they probably have at least 3 different variations of each puppet, full body puppets. There were probably some animatronic puppets that had fully remote control heads for when you have to see full bodies, and that's the puppet craft of it that I still love, and I love watching. And I especially love this in this last watch through, where I still couldn't figure out how they did some of the stuff. And that's the best part, is that they put so much magic in that somebody like me who's trained to do this and has been around it for a long time still can't figure it out. And that's where I take my hat off and I bow to those geniuses that came before.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, what do you think? We're 46 minutes in. I was thinking of just blasting through to the rankings now instead of stopping at the categories on the way, unless you guys have anything you want to highlight. I've just got 2 things I want to say before we get on to that. But
Best line: questions, too many questions.
well, my favorite line, I couldn't help it. I watched this movie with my wife, who's a harsh critic, and my favorite line was from her watching it, and she said, "I'd rather do crystal meth than watch this movie."
Jesus.
Why not both?
Why not? It would have helped.
Dark crystal meth.
Okay, one question before we get to the ranking, because I just need to ask this question. Would you drink someone's essence?
Of
Yes.
course. Come on.
I did last night.
I'm no prude.
Oh, no. Brad, I forgot to warn you what you were in for.
Wait, I don't get it. Can you tell me what that means?
So tomorrow is Pride. Anthony, can you come down and pretend you're my boyfriend? You're looking pretty gay with your shaved head.
Thank you. I think the ferries are all booked.
Okay, that's all I'm doing. I promised. So, Brad, I tend to go into like very naughty performative conversations, and I tell Olen to hold me back or to not to edit me out, because I can go over the top sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I
Very rarely are we editing.
I can't tell you how many advantages it gave me in my early years to be the only straight guy in the Muppet Workshop. I mean, that was really you go to a bar and it's just like all these, oh, he works with the Muppets, and they all do? Oh my goodness. And it's like, oh, I got it. That's the only one.
You're like, score.
Great line.
No, that's not true, but I understand that I can make horrible jokes too now. Okay, good.
No, that's great.
So you
That's
guys
great.
ready to hear how this movie did?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's get into it. So, according to Box Office Mojo Worldwide, The Dark Crystal was the 16th biggest earner at the box office in 1982.
Wow.
E.T., another puppet, was the biggest earner at the box office in 1982. And The Dark Crystal was beat by other films like Porky's and First Blood. So the people prefer Porky's to The Dark Crystal.
So, Brad, did you know that Porky's until recently was the most successful Canadian film ever made?
25 years it held the record as the most successful Canadian film ever made.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well
That's a
deserved.
fact.
That I guess it
Sex
doesn't
sells.
surprise me,
Yeah.
But wow. What
Yeah.
is the more what beat it?
What beat it,
Porky's
Olen?
2?
It's like Good Cop, Bond Cop or something.
Yeah, that's the one that took it out. Exactly.
Wow.
Anyhow, back to the Dark Crystal. So the Dark Crystal, 16th wasn't bad. It beat out a lot of good movies this year. It beat Conan, Tron, and Blade Runner.
Really?
beat Blade
that
Runner.
surprises me.
It beat Blade Runner. Yep, at the box
Wow.
office. Don't forget that this is like how it did at the box office, not since. So,
Yeah, yeah.
And I got to comment on that in a bit.
I'll just say right now, I'd much rather watch this movie 10 times before I watch Tron once again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You suck,
Oh,
dude.
wait, hold on.
You know that Tron is a groundbreaking movie. Tron actually was the first film ever to have a fully CG rendered sequence in it.
Really?
The recognizers. And yeah, right there. First time ever for a fully rendered CG moment. And Tron was ineligible to win an Oscar for special effects that year because the Academy decided that using computers to create special effects was cheating.
Really?
So
Times
it did
have
not
changed.
get a special effects even
Wonderful.
nomination. And I mean, think about put that lens on movies now, and like,
That's
holy
incredible.
cow! Like they just,
That's incredible.
you know, people hate what they don't understand, I guess, but that's just such a cheat. Tron is, I don't know, it's pacey, right?
I love Tron, but I understand the millennials. That's one of the ones we did on this. I got a story about when the kids were little and I made them watch Tron and they just were not happy with me. But anyhow, so Chariots of Fire was the Oscar winner this year, and The Dark Crystal got no Oscar nominations. The budget, this movie cost $15 million to make. Anybody want to guess what it did at the box office?
25.
So,
76.
13.
so it was number 16, you said?
Yep,
What year?
1982.
Okay, there's patterns, right? So I'd say about 62.
44 million. But it is so this is a sleeper hit or a cult classic, whatever you want to call it. It's estimated to have done 250 million lifetime.
No way.
Yeah. So it's
pretty
and by the way, 44 on 15 is not bad. That's a 3x, right? Somebody's
Yeah.
making money.
Yeah.
This was the highest grossing release of 1983 in France and Japan. So the French love puppets. So, Brad, we like to play the Rotten Tomatoes game on this. So nobody researches the movies ahead of time. They just watch them and then we talk about them. And
Oh.
you're familiar with the Rotten Tomatoes scale, right?
I am.
Okay, so do you know the scores off the top of your head?
No, can't
Then
even
you get to
imagine.
play. You get to play.
All right.
So you guys can guess, critics and audience, what do you think the Dark Crystal got?
Are those
Anybody
two
can-
separate scores?
Yes, critic score and audience score. They're both separate out of 100.
I'm going to give critics 92 and audience 73 and a half.
Kind of similar. I think critics 84, audience 78.
Go ahead, Matthew. I'm going to go last.
So, because I'm married to a geek who plays Dungeons and Dragons, and Dark Crystal is one of his all-time favorite movies, I understand the pure geekdom of sci-fi and fantasy. So I'm going to assume that more people went in to give it a review who loved it than didn't. So I'm going to give it like 90 for audience and 75 for critics.
Matthew always has to do them backwards.
No, I like that it's
Yeah.
inverted. for
Will,
you. That's
critics and
good.
audience, can you keep track of which is first out of that long list?
Critics, I'm going to go 69. Audience, 85.
Wow, this is super interesting. So obviously low score wins. First of all, critics 78, audience 81.
Oh,
And I was
high.
surprised that it was that high, to be honest. So Brad, you got a 21. Will, you got a 13. Matthew a 12. And Anthony, you win this week with a 9.
wow.
Well,
Well
done.
Tony.
So just a couple of quick trivia facts for you guys. So Jim Henson's plan was to get back to the darkness of the original Brothers Grimm fairy tales. He felt that children liked the idea of being scared and that this was a healthy emotion for them.
I agree with that.
This was the first live action film without human actors.
Interesting.
This movie
That's
was
cool.
banned in several Muslim countries due to content that was deemed sacrilegious.
It was the vultures, wasn't it?
They hate puppets
Yeah,
apparently.
what is sacrilegious about? I mean, what is religious? I don't know. Whatever.
I got no idea. People, right? And Brad, you would know this, but not everybody does. Every blink, eye movement, lip curl, facial expression had to be physically operated by puppeteers and technicians.
That makes you
and-
appreciate that shit a lot more.
David Bowie was a huge fan
incredible.
of this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's worth saying just as a nice nod to the puppeteers who really did a genius job. It's not one puppeteer for one character. In fact, in almost every case, you have more than one puppeteer operating these characters all in conjunction. It's sometimes three if there's an electromechanical blink or something like that if it's not up in the head. And so all three of these people, or two of these people certainly, because you've got one hand up in the mouth and you've got the other hand, your most puppeteers are right-handed, so that's where the dominant hand goes. And then the offhand, the left hand, goes into the character's left hand or controls it with a rod or whatever it is. And so to get the right hand to come to life, you need another puppeteer. And
Right.
sometimes if there's a tail or something else, like if it's not just a human-like character, you need a third puppeteer. And they're all doing this beautiful dance as they perform this character, staring at monitors, not worrying about where they are. They're just moving. And when you get to see this in person, it's like ballet. It's amazing how you can pack all these puppeteers into a tiny little space and they still find room for each other and find a way to bring these inanimate objects to life. And it's really a magical thing when it works really well.
That's
so is
awesome.
it fair to say you got off easy being a penguin?
Oh yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, these guys are genius. Like, I'll drive a droid around or something like that, or get in scuba gear and get under a seal. But to really emote and to be at the level where a puppet can make someone feel in a very big way is brilliant. And if I can assist with, especially with Muppets, if I can assist in any way with a little gag like Scooter breathing into a paper bag and the paper bag inflates and deflates along with the puppeteer to give them breath, like, that just helps that performance. But the performance is always these really talented and brilliant world-class puppeteers that I am consistently in awe of.
Okay, so then next category, woke or joke. Did you guys? So Brad, this is just anything that doesn't particularly age well from the era. Anybody find anything? I got one.
I think it's hard when it's all puppets.
Okay, we'll see if you like mine. So woke or joke, I said slaves, little tiny bald slaves. I think that doesn't.
Yeah, I
age-
wasn't expecting that. It kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
What was the line when he's like, "You have wings," and she's like, "Of course I do." He's like, "I don't have wings." He's like, "Yeah, you're a boy."
Of course not. You're
I was
a
like,
boy.
"Okay, body shaming." Like, all right.
I liked it. Actually, it was such an odd scene watching those little guys strapped into the chair and sucking their essence out. It was a creepy little scene.
Yeah, but it's scary. It gives it weight. I like that about it.
Totally does. Totally does. Okay, so reviews, however you guys felt about this movie. I promise you there's others who liked it more or less than you. For this movie, there were 91 10-star reviews out of 331 total reviews. So just a couple of quotes from the 10-star reviews. As a kid, it had me enthralled and terrified at the same time. Fair. The lengths Jim and his team went to create this world were a gift to the planet. Seeing this
agree.
film on the big screen made me appreciate just how much care, thought, and love Jim Henson poured into his films. And finally, what modern cinema really needs is more puppets and less humans.
Yeah, I
Straight
agree.
up.
Less Marvel action films, CGI slop, more
I'm so bored of Marvel.
practical puppeteering.
I'm so tired of all that stuff, too. Okay, well, let's hear from people who liked it less for this movie. There were only 5 people who gave it a 1-star review compared to 91 10-star reviews. So not many haters. And they said, couple of quotes, "I have absolutely no idea what I just watched. It's like watching someone else's fever dream." It's kind of true. And this description of the movie, 95 minutes of weird birds yelling at each other.
That's good.
I wrote that one.
And last one,
genius.
everyone looks like they're one bad day away from tax fraud.
God.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. Somebody's worried
I
about
think that's
their
an
taxes.
anti-Semitic jab or something.
Okay, Siskel and Ebert, you guys think there's any chance they liked it?
I think they both did. I don't know.
I think one of them would have
I
been
think
up
they would
and
like
one
it.
down.
I think both bad. Both didn't like it.
Well,
2 thumbs up.
they never did formally review it. It was just too early for them,
Yeah.
but they did talk about it over the years, comparing it to other puppet movies. So Siskel thought The Dark Crystal was an impressive technical achievement, but one that never became emotionally engaging. He felt the story lacked suspense because the prophecy made the ending feel inevitable. And while he admired the incredible creature designs, he didn't connect with the characters.
You know what? I generally don't agree with those guys, but that summed up my take pretty well.
Okay.
But prophecies are inevitable.
Ebert thought Jim Henson's imagination and craftsmanship deserved admiration, but also felt the film fell short as a story. He appreciated the originality of the fantasy world and the artistry behind the puppetry, yet believed the emotional core was missing. And funny enough, Ebert described The Neverending Story as a better type of film that was similar.
Interesting.
Well, I think what The Neverending Story does is it's a little bit more upbeat, right? And it mixes humans and puppets. I did have a question as to whether having, any humans at all in this would have made it a little bit more interesting.
No, I think it was good in its
absolutely
own
not.
world.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as soon as you put a human in it, it breaks it.
Yeah. Unless it was David Bowie.
So, sequel or remake? I know there were sequels, and I'd love to hear from Mathew and Brad who have seen them, whether they're any good. Or not sequels, prequels, I guess. But would you guys like to see more from these characters?
I wish they kept going with the prequel. I was enjoying it.
Brad, what did you think?
I would love for them to make more because I'd like to work on them. Just
Fair.
to be my whole job here is like, I all the time I'm building something or bringing something to set and somebody questions it and I just hold up my hands and I'm like, look, I didn't write it. What I love is the craft, is the get to envision something that nobody's ever made, reimagine it for the world that it's in, and get to participate in that. Like that's the gift of my job at this point in my career, is getting to work with illustrators and fabricators and building things that are gorgeous and really fun to touch. And you bring it out to set and it's on the cart and all the crew knows they're not supposed to touch your stuff and some of them just can't help themselves. And you've done a really cool prop if somebody who knows better picks it up. And I think if they could do more Dark Crystals, I would be so honored if I got to participate in the craft. Regardless of what the story is, the experience for me would be not so much the destination, but the journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's my perspective, I guess.
Fair.
Totally. Anthony, what were you going to say?
Oh, I would like to see a prequel with like the Gelfling Skeksis kind of.
Well, you can,
slaughter.
dude. You can.
Yeah.
It's
Congratulations.
either on Prime or Netflix.
Oh, there's a thing. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can watch it.
Yep.
Oh, it's not my lucky day.
Okay.
I'd like a remake, but or even just a whole new story. To be honest, I would like a movie that's all puppets, but none of the Skeksis story. I didn't care for the story, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
that's fair.
But I loved the practicality of it all.
Genocide, not Holocaust. I meant to say genocide earlier.
There you go.
Cancelled.
Clip it.
Woke or joke, Mathew. Okay, well, we are at the end of the pod, so now you guys got to give it your official rating. Is this movie too old or pure gold?
I'm gonna say right down the middle. It's a little old, but it's a little gold. It's got a little something for everybody, maybe.
I think it is groundbreaking, and for that reason, it's pure gold. And I can't wait for my kid to be scared watching it with me one day.
Cool.
I actually wrote a little bit here. I wrote, it trusts children with difficult ideas, mortality, ecological collapse, corruption, sacrifice, damage of imbalance. It's strange, beautiful, grotesque, and sincere, but that sincerity is why it lasts. It doesn't look like anything else, sound like anything else, or think like anything else, so I said it's pure gold in my mind.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give it pure gold, not simply because of the craft of the film, but because it's a 40-year-old plus movie that's themes are so incredibly relevant today with our current global situation and domestic situation that if you can find something that's that universal and that unique in its storytelling, and it resonates for decades into the future, then regardless as to whether it's pacey or the puppets move quite right, or, all of the rest of it, maybe the ending is inevitable, that all goes away for me when I find that the themes and the stories are still relevant, and hopefully, well, and probably, unfortunately, will still be relevant for decades to come.
So for me, I totally appreciate the craftsmanship, and I gotta say, I really admire Jim Henson. Like, he could have just banked on the Muppet Show for the rest of his life, but he wanted to try something different, and I totally admire anybody that takes a big swing. I think it's a very interesting movie, so I'm gonna give it a gold because I think people should look back and it's an interesting movie. But I will caution people: do not watch it when you're tired. Either be altered or wide awake when you watch it. That is my advice.
Yeah, take some mushrooms and lock in to the Dark Crystal.
It'd be interesting to watch.
This would be a great mushroom watch.
Oh yeah. Should we do that for the next ep?
Is
Totally.
there a whole new podcast coming?
Yeah. The mushroom pod.
The Shroomcast.
Shroomcast.
The Shroomcast.
I love it. Okay, that's the end. Brad, we totally appreciate you coming on. It was so interesting to
Thank
hear
you,
about
sir.
your career.
Yeah, so cool to hear about the industry and your profession.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we get to do this again. If you ever, need some idiot to just blather on, please let me know.
I would.
We got 4 of them already.
Yeah, we got some here.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad.
Can I just say one small thing? Last year, with all this stuff that was going on in life, so Brad, I just got through cancer and everything, and all the terrible news that was happening. My husband and I discovered the Muppet Show, I think on Prime or Netflix, and just at the end of the day, the last thing we watched was just one Muppet Show, like the originals, because it just made everything feel so much better.
My favorite episode from when I was a kid was the Elton John episode.
Oh, so good.
To watch all those Muppets playing along and sing along with Elton John in his phase when he had the big glasses and the stupid clothes. It was really, really something. Yeah, Muppet Show was quite a
He's always
show.
been in that phase.
I have to, I want to drive everybody to watch season 3. The Chris Christopherson was the guest, and there is a moment where it's just Floyd, and who's puppeteered and by Jerry Nelson, who's no longer with us, and it's Rolf at the piano, and they do New York State of Mind, and you can go look this up. It is
Great song.
It is the absolute best performance of that song I have ever seen. It's not funny. It's just soulful. It doesn't include the guest star. It's just a beautiful moment between Jerry Nelson and Jim Henson at a piano as Floyd Peppers and Rolf the dog. And I got to tell you, like, every time I get misty because
I'm gonna literally
there's
go
a
watch that
power
now.
in puppetry. And if you can believe a character like Agra or Jen or any of the characters that come to life in Crystal, or if you can believe that Yoda is really there in Dagobah talking to Luke in the hut, like there's a magic transformation that happens when you just watch the content and you don't worry about the process. And I think that Dark Crystal gets there, and I think the Muppets have gotten there so many times and will again and again, I hope. So I don't know. I'm a puppet geek forever, and and just a big fan. And I think what you guys are doing is really fun. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
Oh,
Brad.
thanks for, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. This was a great episode. Love hearing about it.
We'll have you on again for sure.
I would
do
love
it.
to do
Yeah.
Labyrinth. To be honest, I'd love to do Labyrinth. I love
Yeah,
that with
that's
David
another one.
Bowie. Amazing.
Yeah, when that big guy just says "smells bad" over and over again, it's so good. So,
Okay, well, I'll take you up on that. I will reach out when we do Labyrinth.
all right.
Okay,
Cheers,
thanks,
Have a good
guys.
one.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.